The Flyin Lion says,
boys, hell is real.
2023 Supporter Shield champs.
So glad that I can be back with people who know that it's a Flyin Lion.
It shows how much we all love this club.
Yeah, just a fan of the sport, you know.
It's definitely tougher to be an academy player than it is a pro.
Soccer is my favorite sport now.
Jersey swap.
Car of the week, trivia question of the week.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin Lion podcast. An up and down week for FC Cincinnati, but we got more soccer to come, Sam. I'm excited about things that are, again, to come, not from behind us, because the last two games were not exactly what we wanted, but we at least move on in one competition, and we have more MLS games to come.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obviously, like you said, not what you want. With draw and then, kind of a bad loss, especially to begin the season. I know, during the previews, if you haven't, heard those and you're still wanting to catch up on the season, go back, listen to those. But earlier we were talking about how, maybe this team, it'll take a while for them to gel. Ultimately it was, I don't think it was really like the gelling of the team. It was more of Pat knowing the strengths of his players. I think came down to at least the second game. So, to your point, moving on, as we're recording, we've got, a game tomorrow. So on to the next game.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a burn the tape kind of week, I would say, in a way. We'll kind of talk about, obviously CONCACAF Champions Cup. We'll break down that Philly game and kind of where it went wrong, what things we see moving forward that we can change. It's funny, we had even put it in the title of the last episode, like, is this the most talented FC Cincinnati team that we've had? And then right after that, they go and they get killed. So maybe that's on us for getting too far ahead of ourselves, 3 games into the season at that point. But, talent-wise versus what they show, maybe that's a different conversation. But for CONCACAF Champions Cup, we had the second leg against Motagua. We had won 4-1 away, and then we ended up getting a 1-1 draw at home, 5-2 on aggregate. But I wanted to shout out the Motagua supporters, Sam. Like, awesome to see the contingent of people, whether they traveled in from out of the country or from around the U.S. They killed it. They had a really good, TIFO presentation, up in their section, and they marched to the stadium and even had met the president along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I think we saw, videos afterwards of, the president meeting his fans, in the street of Cincinnati and them kind of hugging him and being like, oh my gosh, like he's here, he's supporting, an away match. I believe after, the game we're about to talk about, I believe he has dinner with Jeff Birding, a couple other people. I think I saw a photo. So really cool that they were able to kind of come and support. I know I had some friends and family that had sat near, their supporter group and complained a little bit, but is what it is, right?
I heard like great things about them though. Like
as far as just like their energy, right?
Okay.
Like, so from a home perspective, maybe you're not used to, the energy that away fans will bring, or even the home fans. So I thought it was cool that, before the game, we had saw that they brought different factions, right? So like, I think there was Orlando, Austin, like traveling from all over the place, not just obviously Honduras.
Yeah, and if they think that this one's bad, then, Tuesday, they might want to stay away from that when we play Tigres. But, we're coming into the stadium, Sam, and it's a 6:30 kickoff, so it's a little bit earlier. But we hear the national anthem going, and I always forget for Champions Cup, like none of the players are on the field. We don't get to do our sword pull. Like, it kind of brought me back to last year and all the issues we had with it. And we still haven't had a resolution to that. Why are we doing national anthems without the players on the field? Why are we not doing a Honduras national anthem as well? Like, that's kind of an issue, I think.
Yeah, I know it's a little like interesting. You're wanting to expand, the game and the Champions Cup itself to make it, legitimate on our side of the world. And you're not really opening people up to the fact that the other team has a national anthem, or, even I know they had played the Champions Cup anthem too. So at least they're playing that, right? I think the players were out there at that point, but Yeah, definitely interesting. I know we've got our own complaints for Leagues Cup and CONCACAF Champions Cup, but we're not the people running it. So we'll see how much we can get to the top.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously excited to be a part of it. It's such a big
Yeah.
competition, in North America. But there's definitely ways that they can even improve it, from what we have. We did have a pretty solid lineup, Sam. I know we talked about last episode, is it going to be heavily rotated? Knowing that, again, we had a 4-1, aggregate at the time, just needed to kind of see this one out to advance to the next round. But the lineup's pretty strong. We had Leroux, Halsey, Powell, Robinson, Adnan, Daly, Anunga, Buka, Evander, Baird, and Denke. Were you surprised by who we saw, or after hearing Pat's comments, did it kind of make sense to you?
Yeah, I know last episode I had mentioned, like, are we going to see Leroux or Halsey, because they were unused subs the last game against Motagua. So glad to see both of those guys make the team sheet and the starting lineup. But I think up front, you don't really see, even in the midfield, you don't really see guys that you're like, oh man, that was a surprise. I think it's more back line, right? So Dali making the start, very impressive. Adnan, once again, coming off his, Champions Cup first game, and then the second game, it was interesting to kind of see that he got the start as well. I think we're still, you and I, as far as the podcast goes, I think we're still going to pull for Brian Shaver, considering, we used a draft pick on him. We've only heard great things coming off of last season, even preseason. So honestly, would have liked to see him get, added to the team sheet, but you get Mamba Dem that got his contract purchased for this game as well. So very interesting.
Yeah, no, my thoughts are about the same with the 11. We kind of had the debate, do you want to get these guys to gel with each other, or are you okay to kind of see it out, and then you do have some guys that can rest up for Saturday's match? In the end, like, was it the right decision with how we played on Saturday? And did the Wednesday match kind of contribute to that? Looking back on it now, it's easy to say that, but in the moment, you don't really know. And you see these guys day to day, you have conversations, you ask them, how are you feeling? Did you recover well from the last game? Did you take any knocks? So I'm sure that all played into it. And these guys are professionals. They want to be on the field no matter who we're playing. They're playing at home again, so that's exciting for them, especially for the new guys. You shouted out Mamba Dem. I want to shout him out for his first team debut for FC Cincinnati in official competition. First Dayton Flyer to appear for FCC, so I wanted to put my plug in for that, being a Flyer guy myself. And like you mentioned for Amir Dowley, he had a solid 53 minutes until the other team thought he played so well that they knocked him to the ground and he broke his clavicle on his birthday. Poor guy. Yeah. He'll be out for 6 to 8 weeks, but otherwise, impressed in this match. He's got a lot of speed, so I hope he recovers well. And he had find a footing moving forward.
He had surgery yesterday, right?
A few days ago, yeah.
A few days ago, yeah.
Well, I think it was maybe even a day or two after the game. So hopefully, yeah, he comes back strong, because he looks promising. I think we had heard good things about him, and then finally got to see it for the first team. But as we get into this game, we looked at the first 10 minutes and kind of circled it as being important. Both games this week, we had goals scored against us in the first 10 minutes. So 9th minute, very similar to how they scored in the first leg. Motagua gets a ball whipped into the box, and Adnan loses mark. And the same forward we might need to have a look at, Sam, the Argentinian forward that they have. But he has a nice volley to score, and they're up 1-0. At the time, I think it would have been, 4-2 on aggregate. You're still kind of comfortable there with where it is, but still, I hate getting scored on first, especially at home, that quickly into a match.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when, you're kind of, I think the fans are comparing it to last year against Cavalier. Like, we really came out, dominated, and they didn't score a goal in the entire aggregate. And we're kind of expecting to have that at home, right? So unfortunately, we give up a goal within the first 10 minutes. Like you said, this is another, mistake by Adnan, just not marking his guy. I don't know, what was going through his head, but his contract wasn't purchased for the, the next game. So obviously he's got some things to work on. But we get another one back at least, another 10 minutes later.
Yeah, it was a nice response, especially again at home. Like the away team builds confidence if they can score early and kind of to quiet the crowd. We had a decent crowd for what it was worth. Like, we talked about Montaguas, but overall it was pretty decent for a Wednesday. It was a little bit warmer. But we got the crowd back into it. Like you said, in the 19th minute, Anunga forces a turnover. Baird ends up driving the ball forward. Really underplayed moment in this is how Kevin Danke opens up, his body and drifts out wide to open up the space. Baird slots him through. And I mean, let's talk about how good Danke is at just finishing one-on-one. It was a nice finish. It was good to see him at the moment, 3 goals in 3 games to start his FC Cincinnati career.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you and I both, like, obviously last year we were very critical of Corey Baird. I feel like this game he played really well. Defensively and offensively, he actually showed a little bit of like fight, and we were like, oh, okay, like we haven't seen this. This is Houston Dynamo Corey Baird that we really hadn't seen for FC Cincinnati yet in our eyes. But it was nice to kind of see him start this, right? You say, he's able to find Denke, who phenomenal for Denke to create the space there for the finish, but for Baird to be able to lay that off outside of the boot, doesn't have to put much on it, and is, with the pace of Denke, it was just a well coordinated attack, and we've got 1-1 after 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point too, because if you think about the other guys that are around him, I think Baird's probably the longest played FCC player through preseason, with Denke up top. Because Kubo came in late, Evander came in late. We haven't seen Orellano. So, I think the Baird and Denke connection, if they're going to go with that early on here, we see the assist there, and that was great. He had some other chances, I think, later on that they kind of combined on. But I would say, from there, the second half, we do get some subs. We finally get some guys some rest. So we see Stefan Chirilla come in. I believe Miles Robinson came off as well for Gilberto Flores. And then we had Alvis Powell just going ham in the second half. Like that's the one thing I want to highlight that I remember, because otherwise the second half wasn't as fun. But Alvis was just driving the ball, like just vintage Alvis, just going on these runs, whipping the ball in from, out wide. Created several chances and probably should have had a PK called, his way as well. I mean, wouldn't you say? Or
yeah,
no,
absolutely.
I think it might have been right on the edge of the box. Like,
it was
a foul.
It was pretty close. Yeah, it was a foul. It was for sure a foul. But yeah, I think we've seen from Powell all the time. I know it scares a lot of other people seeing Powell drive like that, but he drives into space and is able to kind of maneuver. It's almost like he's moving side to side, but still in a straight line. Right, like it's very incredible to watch. But as far as like second half things, I know Kubo coming in with Chirilla up top. Kubo and it felt like everybody else up top was really trying to get Chirilla this goal. I think he honestly had probably a genuine 1 or 2 chances that he could have slotted away, and the ball is. He takes a bad first touch or second touch and it kind of like gets away from him. But they were really trying to get him that first, MLS, or not MLS goal, but first FC Cincinnati first team goal.
Yeah, I remember the one where he was trying to slot him in, and it just was past where Chirilla was, I think. And you could see Kubo smiling after, like he's really trying to get him, a chance. Mamba Dem gets a really good chance, the 90th minute +2, so 92nd minute, one-on-one with the keeper. And nice save by the keep. Could he have played it, with his right boot at the time? He's a left-footed striker, but maybe should have had that one. I know he's probably kicking himself, for that in that moment to get a game winner of what it would have been. But overall, we got the job done. We advanced to the round of 16, and we'll kind of preview that next matchup. Overall, this game, like kind of a disappointment, a little bit boring. Was nice to see Anunga take the captain armband in the second half. We saw him, and as vocal as he was, I think Pat even, had shouted it out. He keeps players accountable out there. Maybe the combination of who he should be with is the bigger conversation for what we saw in the next game. But I felt like in this match, like he was the commanding voice for what we needed in the midfield. If Obi's not in there, like he's the punisher. It's just like 2 punishers together and without ball progression is, I think, the issue.
So yeah, I know rolling into the next game a little bit, but we see, I think you and I had commented on this honestly throughout the game until Buka finally came out. And we were like, you got to take Buka out. You got to take him out. Like we
Yeah,
thought
I mean,
we were going to take him out at the 40, at halftime, and they don't take him out. And you see that Pat gives him kind of, the rest day, the next match. And I feel like that's a domino that could
it's
have
true.
been better handled.
I don't know if so. Obviously, he plays a lot in the Motagua game, but if you look back to the Red Bulls match, he takes a pretty good knock towards the end of the game, and he got kicked pretty hard. He was down for a little while, so I don't know if he's got a lingering thing, but that would make sense if he played him all those minutes, on Wednesday. Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, like, okay, it's 1-1, you're pushing, like you want to advance, but even win the match, obviously. But you're taking Robinson off, you're taking Evander off, you're taking Denke off. Give Buka a chance to break too. Like last year, I think he played the most matches for
He
us
did, yeah.
of any player, and was top 5, I think, in the MLS in matches played and minutes played. So yeah, if you have this game on Saturday, like it almost seemed like a no-brainer to me. Maybe it was in their plans the whole time that they knew who they were going to play Saturday. But I mean, we can look back on it now and say like it just wasn't the right decision. So the lineup against Philly away this past Saturday, match day number 2, Celentano, we had Engel coming back in. Hadebe was back in to start next to Robinson and Flores. Yedlin was back. Anunga next to Obi. And then you had Kubo, Evander kind of doing 10s again with Denke. Nick Hagelin was available for both Motagua and for Philly. Did not make his first appearance for 2025, but I'm hoping that we can get that sometime soon. Hopefully when we're comfortably ahead before he builds his way into some competitive matches. Santos available on the bench. Orellano was available, but did not even travel with the team to Philly. So that was kind of interesting. Any thoughts about lineup subs? These guys coming back.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Seeing the news from Carter before the game, like, oh yeah, like Orellano's available, and so you're like, oh, like he might come on as a sub or might start. No, he didn't even travel with the team. He's just available. So interesting, like one of those things. I don't think Pat, touched on it during his comments today, about if that was another coach's decision or what that was. But yeah, I think this squad, you take out Anunga and we put in Buka, and it's one of our strongest lineups that we're able to put out there right now. So interesting to see like how like the rest of the game went, considering the lineup.
Yeah, and like from everything we had seen for the first several games, like it just seemed just so dead. The first 10 minutes of the match, it's like, did the team even travel? It just seemed off, and the vibes were off too, honestly. And I don't know who that's on. I think it's, trying to get everyone prepared for it, clearly, but you go down early away. And we've seen it, probably the last 2 years, we've crawled our way back into matches. We find ourselves down and we're able to at least get a, point or a result on the road. In the 6th minute, we get scored on an easy tap in. It just splits the defender. They play the ball across. And it seemed like Baribo's 3 goals were all pretty much like tap ins. The second one in the 30th minute, split through the line. It's off a deflection, miscommunication in the midfield. So again, like Anunga, Obi, like, are they that comfortable with each other in these games as we thought they were? I don't know. But the deflection leads the guy in. He plays the ball into Baribo. Second goal, you're down 2-0. And it's just like, well, how are we going to dig out from this? As the half kept going on, we kept hearing reports about how bad the wind was, and so Bradley Carnell, the new coach for Philly, his whole thing is to press and to put us under. And I felt like in the Red Bulls game, we didn't handle it great, and I was worried about what this would do against Philly. And it just killed us. It created so many opportunities for them just on turnovers, building from the back, having Roman play the ball to people. Like, we just couldn't keep the ball, honestly, is what it was. We couldn't progress the ball. We couldn't string together any passes. It just seemed so disorganized. And that's where I feel like you need to have somebody that really is just like, let's bring it all back together. And if the spine of your midfield is a little bit off with a different player there, or if you don't have Miazga like we're typically used to, like we need these guys to hold us accountable and to bring us together and just say, okay, we can tell the vibes are off, but let's stick to it. Let's try to bunker the storm in a way. And it just felt like the first half we were just trying to keep it together as much as we could.
Yeah, and those first two goals, during that first half came on that side of Yedlin, Obi, Flores down that, that right side of our defense. So it almost felt like they were, kind of using that or saw a weakness or something.
And it was giveaways from angle too, trying to build out of the back. And then Obi played balls away. I mean, it was down that side that they scored, but yeah, I mean, there was, I think one of the goals, nobody stepped on the guy, out wide. I think it was the third goal in the 52nd minute. So then they go up 3-0. But Yedlin doesn't step on the guy and they whip a ball in and it's just a free for all. So, I mean, I just don't understand, like, the communication has to be there. And again, like, a lot of these guys have not had consistent minutes with each other. There's a lot of talent there. I still feel pretty good about the defense, but, I mean, Robinson, Hadebe, and Flores have only really played in, 2 games, really? Like, the first MLS game and this one together?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, that's tough. So, it's solidifying that back line, building that chemistry with it. If you look at the other side, on Philly's side of it, Sam, like, yeah, it's a new coach, but it's a lot of the same pieces. And, okay, you have to transition to a new style of play. It's not that hard to really, like, just press the ball. Like, yeah, you have to all be together, but if you've had players that have played together for multiple years, it's easier to adapt to a different style, I would argue.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah, I think
I just felt like
right
they looked like the more connected team because of that. Even though they had a new coach, it's like they had a plan, and then they all were like, we're all going to do it together.
Yeah, I think, like you said, with Anunga and Obi kind of figuring out, we're both defensive midfielders. How are we going to, like you had said earlier, get the ball up to our forwards, whether it be Evander or Denke, like, how are we going to move the ball from here up to there? Because our roles are to pretty much stop, the offense of the other team. Like we're the second line of defense, or first line of defense. I mean, but
it was so disconnected even between, that line in Kubo and Evander. Like I know Evander likes to drift out wide. I've said that before, to his left, and Kubo was more on the right. So it kind of felt like we spread that line, but every time Obi or Anunga did try to connect the pass, it was always to Denke. It wasn't really to Evander or to Kubo. So I don't think they've really figured out, where to find each other in space or how do we progress it that way. There's a whole bunch of talk about formation change. Do you want to get into that now? And like,
we can look
like. I mean, we had called for it before, I think, and even talking about, would it be a possibility to play in a back four and bring one more midfielder in, or get guys to play in a wing spot, attacking wing. Honestly, that's kind of what we did in this match. Like, we had Denke as a solo striker. Vander almost played like a left wing and Kubo almost like a right wing, and it didn't seem, again, connected that way. Like, if you're going to have that spread out that wide, you either need to have one of the center backs become more of a center mid person, or you need to have Buka in there that's going to do that. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought. I don't think we scrap it personally after like one bad loss. Like we thought about it last year. I think we had the same conversation and then they kind of turned it around and figured it out. It's so early on in the season. We're still trying to work all of this out. I think they just went down and just were not able to kind of collectively get back into it. Evander pulls one back, Sam, in the 58th minute.
It was nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, and that was nice. It was against kind of the run of play, but he was lucky. You put it in our breakdown. He was lucky that the ball did deflect back to him. He hits a left-footed shot from the top of the 18 and slots it away nicely. And at that point, it was 3-1. And if you look in the 78th minute, Sam, Alvis Powell gets subbed in, I think, 6 minutes earlier for Yedlin. And I felt like Powell had a pretty decent go at it in trying to create things. One of those snaky, long, runs to the defense where he just accelerates past everyone, goes down, hits a left-footed shot that Andre Blake fumbles, and Denke just completely hits it straight up in the air against the bar. Like, that was an easy tap in, and then a cross comes into Baird right after, And it would have been 3-2 if we put either of those chances away. So we might be looking at something different if he scores that, and then, maybe you build momentum to go 3-3. I'm not going to say anything about Denke because Denke is going to finish those probably, 9.9 out of 10 times. But just in that moment, we really could have used it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the Evander goal, phenomenal goal, like you had said, turns the ball over twice within 5 seconds. If you go back and watch the highlights, like it's almost lackadaisical, like how lucky he is for that ball to come back to him at some point. Phenomenal finish to finish around Blake to the left. But once again, we have chances and we're not able to put them away. Powell's shot is right at Blake, and Denke, like you said, misses. Baird, literally the header is like right by the post. And it felt like one of those things, if that's not going to go in, we're not winning. Yeah, it's not our night. And so obviously that was evident. Philly adds, the last goal there to make it 4-1. And Ryan, you're scratching your head going, man, like this Philly team is actually pretty legit. Like they're 2-0 now in MLS play, and it is not the Philly team that we saw during preseason.
Yeah, I mean, Carnell, I think, is honestly just bringing a different wind of energy. And like if they had the pieces all together pretty much still and just added more of a, connected press, then yeah, they're going to get a lot of chances to score because you're putting teams under pressure. Look at all of the matches in the first two MLS match days. Like there's been probably close to 10 different opportunities that teams have scored on just by pressing and creating, honestly, chaos with the press, and it caused teams to turn the ball over and they score. San Diego's first goal, of their history was that way. Multiple other teams, it was the same exact way. So moving forward, I just want to see how we can adapt to a high press, because you bet your bottom dollar teams are going to, scout us and say, oh, press them high, put them under, and then they're going to turn the ball over and just have easy mistakes. So I really want to see how we can connect the ball, through the back line, through the midfield, to our forwards. Like there's going to be better cohesion there. I'm sure they'll get that right. But how quickly we can do that is the question. Like I mentioned early on in the podcast, though, this is definitely like a burn the tape sort of idea. Go back and kind of see what we did wrong one time maybe, and then just say, all right, how can we turn this forward? We had touched about ball progression, about formation. What do you think of the absences on this? Like everyone wants to say, man, like Miazga was really needed. Like, do you think anything of that in Orellano, like as being the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're missing guys like that for sure. You're talking about a goal of the year. You're talking about defender of the year. Like, of course, we're still missing pieces, right? So that's something that people also need to understand when they look at our squad is we're still not fully healthy, and we're able to, put out a squad that you look at and go, man, like that's one of the best teams in the MLS right there. And we're still missing, two of our best pieces. So of course, yeah, like of course we're missing those guys, but
Can't use it as an excuse though.
No,
I think
yeah,
that's the
absolutely
biggest
not.
thing of like, obviously these guys have to just come in and perform. Does the match congestion play anything with it? I mean,
if every
didn't have
other
a
MLS
midweek.
team can do it, then why can't we? Like,
I mean, yeah,
we
but
did it- we
Philly
learned
doesn't
from
have a
last
match
season.
in the middle of the week, and we have to travel to Philly, and then you still have to perform. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of 2023 when we played St. Louis, and it was Bradley Carnell's team for St. Louis, same coach, 5-1 that we lost. I mean, it was the same style. So does he have our number, in these matchups? Like we beat him, I think last year. I can't remember if it was the interim coach for St. Louis or not. But still, like we got to be better against high pressing teams, honestly, is what it is.
Yep.
And not lose our composure, especially when you go down early on the road. You just need to be better. And that's just a lot of guys that have not played with each other. Anunga was new, Engel was new, Flores was new, Evander, Denke, all these different guys that last year weren't together, whereas Philly, again, a lot of them have been. Do you think that a preseason match against them, that we beat them 4-1, this was kind of like their payback? I saw a ton of energy from them from the start, so maybe they were a little upset and how we embarrassed them. Do people look into preseason that much? I'm sure the coach probably pushed it like that, but I don't know if the players are even considering that, oh man, we lost them 4-1 in preseason.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously you reserve a little from preseason to go, man, like they beat us 4-1, like we should beat them 4-1. Like I don't it just so happens that it's,
It's the
the
same
flip
scoreline flipped. Yeah.
exactly, flip
Yeah.
scoreline, but I think for us, playing Philly, we've had such success, the past couple seasons playing them. This actually snapped a three-match regular season unbeaten run at Subaru Park in Philly. So unfortunately, there you're not getting the production that you're looking for usually on the road in Philly. But Ryan, I thought this was funny. I saw that Obi now has two yellows in two games.
I thought that Anunga was supposed to offload some of these cards.
Exactly, right out of the gate. This guy's already back on the
Yeah.
horse going, oh, I'm just going to pick up where I left off.
Gotta be careful, man. He picks them up like every single game that he's in. Every single one. I mean, we should have a trivia of the week on how many games he's had without a card.
Honestly, we'll start this year. We could do like an OB yellow card tracker or like card tracker.
It's insane. It's crazy. I another stat that I have for you, Sam. FCC's never started a season 2-0-0 in MLS play. So for how good of teams we've had in the last few years, like we've kind of had a little bit slower starts. And right now we sit at 8th in the East. It's so dang early, man. We got all season long to go. I'm excited for again the players we have. It's just again putting it all together and putting it together quick because we do have a big match coming up. As you're listening today, it's tonight at 6:30 against Tigres. So before we go to a break here, and then on the flip side talk about that match, trivia question for you here, Sam.
Yeah, hit me.
So in playing Tigres this week, not including that match, but what is FC Cincinnati's all-time record against Liga MX teams?
Yeah, I can promise you, anybody out there, if I were to get this correct, Ryan's gonna flag it for something. We were talking before the podcast. He thinks I'm cheating, but I think I'm trying to look back. Chivas, Monterrey. I'm trying to think. There's two other clubs. Was it Querétaro? I think was one of them.
Total matches.
Yeah, 6 total matches. That's four. I'm gonna say probably like 4 Mexican opponents. 6 total matches. Let's go. Have we drawn any? I don't know if we've drawn. I don't think we have. I think it's just been win-loss.
I don't know.
6 total. I think we've done really well. So I'm gonna go only 2 losses, Monterrey. I'm gonna go 4-2.
All right, Sam's locked it in. I hope you guys have the right answer. We'll tell you at the end of the episode. We'll be right back.
Hey, FC Cincinnati fans. We are pumped to share our new sponsor, Peak Cocktails.
I'm sipping on the passion fruit margarita, which is so spicy, and it makes me feel like I'm on the beach.
Ooh, that sounds great. I'm drinking the blood orange spritz, which has a great subtle ginger flavor coming from its scientifically formulated recipe to promote exercise recovery, enhance relaxation, and support a better night's sleep.
Ryan, that's exactly why I love them. Their cocktails are designed to fit seamlessly into your health-conscious lifestyle, giving you the enjoyment of a delicious adult drink without the downsides of alcohol.
Guys, next time you are looking for that post-workout drink or an afternoon pick-me-up, grab a Peak Cocktail. Visit them at www.peakcocktails.com and use the code FLYINLION at checkout to get 20% off your first order. Zach, enjoy your drink.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for listening to our sponsor. We are excited for a new week to come because last week, again, was not the funnest, but that's why we have more weeks. We have a long season, and I'm hoping we can turn it around and continue our run in Champions Cup because that's going to be a fun one on Tuesday. Before we get to that, we're going to do our jersey swaps and cards of the week. Sam, I want to hear from you first. What was your jersey swap of the week?
Yeah, jersey swap of the week for me was going to be Evander. I feel like Evander has kind of begun to take control of that primary chance creator role on this FC Cincinnati squad. He created 3 chances for the Matagua game, most anybody in the game, Matagua. But he also had the goal against Philly, had the most passes into the final third against Philly as well. I just feel like he's coming into his own in the squad. Obviously, you kind of see the Brazilian flair or maybe some lackadaisical like moments, but I feel like him and Denke look to be on the same page most of the time. And I think what we're just looking for, especially looking back at this Philly game, is we just need to continue to figure out the familiarity with his other midfielders behind him. How do we get the ball to Evander so that way he can create those chances for Denke or for himself?
Yeah, good shout. I mean, you had mentioned his contributions, in these matches already, so you're starting to see some of that quality. I would like to see it consistently.
Yeah,
if I were to
absolutely.
challenge you on it a little bit, is we need that. We need that guy to be the it guy, and he's not necessarily out there like acting like the it guy yet. He does it by his actions. He's not really like a showman like we've seen before with some other players. But getting a goal in this match was huge. Hopefully to build his confidence for games to come, because we're going to need him. But to get involved with the match, is the biggest thing. And we've seen when he's involved in the match, against New York Red Bulls, one-on-one, he's just brilliant on the ball and beat so many guys. Against Motagua, we saw again, like same thing. I just felt like in Philly, he was just like a little disinterested and didn't really get an opportunity to really shine. So how can we better create that to set him up for those chances? But overall, yeah, solid week from him. Obviously, he's getting his first goal in MLS play for us. Again, let's build on that and see where that goes. On the flip side, for me, my jersey swap was Alvis Pal Sam. I felt like he had a pretty solid match against Motagua. Like we talked about earlier on, had created a lot of those chances that we probably should have had some goals on potentially, maybe even a foul close to the box there. I can remember from, the Philly game, obviously the one goal at the very end happens, but I'm not going to blame him too much on that. I think he had an injury at the time and was trying his best. He did create that shot that almost created the chance off of his shot in the deflection, I think it was. So I just feel like it is really into the matches, and he's trying his best, whether or not it's the best that we have or not. But I love to see the heart.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we love Alvis on this program, and like you said, his heart's definitely out there. And it's nice to see him creating chances and being a part of the buildup, right? We've seen him, I think last season, most of the time, he was honestly a solid defender for us, being able to track people down and just, tackle them from behind, or even just, maybe a quick step here or there. But this year so far, we've seen him kind of take that jump and progress the ball forward a little bit more. So definitely nice to see him going.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm hoping that he can still contribute a lot this year. I think in whatever role he's put into, he accepts it and just says, I'm going to do my best no matter what. So I appreciate that from him. Card of the week, Sam, what do you have this week?
Yeah, card of the week for me is the fact that FC Cincinnati is still selling Lucho's jersey in the team store for almost $200. So after the Motagua game, Ryan and I visited the team store, check out new merch, 10th anniversary gear, etc. Excited for literally everything that's down there. It looks really cool. Coming down the stairs, we notice there's still a Lucho jersey in the team store, and immediately my thought is like, oh, like maybe it's on clearance. We're just, we're trying to get rid of them. That makes sense, right? No, they are still marked up to the original price of $194.99. And I don't know if this is the MLS is doing. I don't know if this is FC Cincinnati, but it's interesting. I know it's still fresh, it's still new, but guys, like if anybody wants a Lucho jersey for, sentiment or to look back on the good old days, let's mark it down a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, like, is this a situation like you think, like for the Reds, it's like, you get a Johnny Bench jersey, or you get the legends of the team, so you have to keep the price the same way. I was a little shocked. We go downstairs and I see the number 10 jersey, and I kind of was like, oh, Evander, and looked away, and then I looked back and I was like, wait, that's a Lucho jersey. There's not even an Evander jersey down there. So
no, yeah,
I was a little kind of confused by that as well. I think that's a good shout for card of the week. Hopefully they can get some Evander jerseys in there. We need some Evander jerseys around the stadium, and Denke jerseys too.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be cool Absolutely. To see in there. But I mean the price of the jerseys this year is still just stupid high.
Yeah. What was yours?
I'm gonna double down for I think the first time ever on this podcast. Apple TV again just dropped the ball big time. for those who looked at the match day lineup before the game, you're looking at, okay, here's the starters, and you look on the side and the substitutes. Marco Angulo was a substitute. I mean, that's just terrible. I mean, the poor guy unfortunately had passed away in the offseason, and it's terrible. And then, you go and you put him as a substitute. Like, I mean, that's just, somebody's got to do better, and I almost feel like we need an apology from Apple TV for this too.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fans, I know we were talking about it before the podcast here, a lot of fans obviously noticed it, up in arms about it clearly and should be. Just not cool. Not cool at all. I agree with you. I think Apple TV, I think we need to drum up, obviously, like us saying it on the podcast, like we want to bring attention to it, because that's not something that you want to see as a viewer, especially like, can you imagine like his parents, right? Like maybe they still support the team because that's, who he played for. So maybe, hey, let's, watch an FC game. Oh, my son is on there. Yeah, not cool.
Just like do your research. It's such a simple thing. Like, and they put the lineouts out. Like, you can go and see clearly. Like, you go on any website, go on FotMob, go on FC's page, and like somebody's got to do better with that. I mean,
graphics department,
terrible.
Yeah.
And they fumbled it 2 weeks in a row now. So pretty rough start for Apple TV. Maybe they're too focused on the Onside documentary.
That could be the case. I know they had just put out an ad today on the Hell is Real Derby, so maybe they were too worried about that.
I don't know, man. But that was our cards of the week. I'm sure there's some crazy stuff to come this year. I mean, it's just been one thing after the next. I think Sam's honorable mention for card of the week was another Inter Miami player grabbing somebody else's neck and probably not even getting fined fined, but probably not suspended.
Yeah.
As Lucho was, a couple years ago. So, Sam, what did you think of this MLS Oscar video that we saw?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. You see Miles Robinson and Miazga both in the video, and they're kind of, each MLS player is kind of going over, who would play them in a movie or who would play a teammate in a movie. Miles Robinson wants Will Smith to play him. Miazga says that he has been told that he looks like a young James Franco, which I was actually, hey, that's not a bad shout right there. And then what caught my attention more was later on in the video when Miazga says that Lucho should be played by Joe Pesci. And if you're not familiar with Joe Pesci's game, he is the small burglar in Home Alone. So I thought that was pretty funny. And it led me and others in our comments to think, man, what are some other doppelgangers that some of our other players might have? Obviously, it's very difficult to find a doppelganger in this world, but
not that hard.
I mean,
the celebrities at least. Like I feel like Joe Burrow's got his big one, and like we have some, but I don't know.
So I've got some here. I don't know if you have any. If you have any, we'll give yours after.
I didn't have any. Go ahead.
So, well, I had a couple that I was just, scrolling through, looking at photos of our players, going, man, who does this look like? Honestly, if you have better ones than we do, please comment, go to our socials, send it to us. We'll give you credit. But I only added two more, and I thought Denke and Terrell Owens, I thought was a pretty good shout. Denke likes to wear the one earring, and I was like,
good shout.
I was thinking like either a T.O. or a young Michael Jordan or something like that, right? Both like to wear the one earring. My other shout, if you know, Anunga kind of looks like Anthony Anderson from Blackish, or if you're really into spy movies, he was in Cody Banks, the London movie early on in his acting. But those are the two that stood out to me. I was trying to find some for like Yedlin or like Corey Baird or even a Celentano, but I couldn't really come up with names.
No, I think the Joe Pesci one for Lucho is hilarious, and the fact that Miazga like brought it up and that they like put it in the video even too.
Yeah, I thought that's another like step forward. Is like, man, they even like left that in the video, and he's not even on the team.
Right. Yeah, definitely funny. I think it's cool when they do these moments, outside the game or ask them questions about their personal life and all of that as well. Just any of like the background, like videos and stuff too. Like I think we have the Junk to Javant videos that FC
Love
Cincinnati
those.
put
Yeah.
out. Yeah, second episode came out I think this past week, and they've like kept up with the travel, to Honduras and everything. So go and check those out on any of the club's pages. They've done a really good job with video content this year. I think Carter had even mentioned that when we interviewed him last year, that they were working on trying to get more interactive and behind the scenes stuff. So I am really excited to kind of see where that goes.
Yeah, I am
We
as
still
well.
want the food series too.
Yes, we'll get the food series. Maybe that's a partnership that we just got to work out with Tommy G. Maybe we bring it to you guys. But FC Cincinnati 2 actually had another signing, Ryan. Another left back, Yorkaif Caicedo,
I like it.
from Club Deportivo, Cuencia, from down in Ecuador. Like I said, primarily a left back, but he actually was a part of FCC2's preseason training group down in Florida. So he played in 4 of their preseason matches, including the last one against Indy 11. So finally signed this 18-year-old. Seems like he's got some promise. Not much like history playing with first or second teams, really. So this is kind of an opportunity for him to grow within his game and give him a shot to see what he's got.
Another youngster that's an international player, and I think you said Ecuadorian, yeah. So I probably has some connection with some of the other guys, in the FCC too as well. But they start their season on Sunday. They play Toronto's 2 team, I believe at NKU to start the year as well. So kind of the first time we've seen where first team and the second team are playing each other. Saturday you have Toronto, and then we have FCC2 that plays the second team on Sunday. So I wonder, do you think they all traveled together from Toronto?
I don't. Maybe. I mean,
Kind of cool as like a
you're-
2-player to go and
if
see,
you're
like,
Toronto to save a little bit of money, I probably
Yeah.
would. Yeah, at least
That's
on the
kinda
way
cool.
down.
Yeah, at least that's true. I don't know on the way back based on timing, but
Yeah.
Sam, you kind of highlighted the press conference that Pat Noonan had today. We'll kind of roll into our Champions Cup round of 16 preview against Tigres. Again, this is a home match that's going to be tonight when you're listening, at 6:30. Again, a little bit earlier than some of the typical matches. But Pat Noonan had some big news to kind of share today, and we had seen it yesterday online as well. But there is a new Tigres manager that they have. Yesterday, the manager, Vojenko Pejanovic, I believe it is what it is. He was their manager. He just got released on Sunday, and their current captain and center back, Guido Pizarro, takes over as manager just 2 days before the round of 16 match against us. Tensions between the players and the manager kind of led to that outing. I'm pretty sure the center back's been around forever. And for the
I
club
think
as well.
35 years old right now.
Yeah. So, was he going to be a coach in the future? Probably. But like to take over that fast and then have this big game and to have it away, Sam, that's huge. So for Pat, I think you tweeted out, how does this change the preparation? I know we had talked earlier on in the season. I think FC Cincinnati had done a lot more scouting on some of the Champions Cup competition. And how is that going to change the way that they play? And he said, it probably is going to change it in some regards. So we'll see what that happens. I wonder from a Tigres player standpoint, you have now your former teammate is now your manager. Does that create any animosity there, or does that kind of bring you together more? I hope it doesn't bring them together more, but
I think ultimately, if he's being, anointed or appointed as the next coach, right? I think the players got a lot to do with that. They obviously respect him if he's been a captain for probably so long at the club. So it's almost like a fluid thing, but he's taking on more of a managerial responsibility. And it was funny, like Pat was like, we were preparing for, the coach that is now, or the center back that is now the coach on the field, but now we have to prep, for him as the coach.
Well, and that was my question is like, he's the captain or was the captain. Is he going to be the center back and the coach while on the field? Is that allowed? Like, do they need a technical director, like a guy on the sideline, or can they just say the assistant coach is there?
I would assume that they need somebody on the sideline because
probably just to say who do we sub or like
occupy the box, right? Like somebody has to occupy the box.
But like if he's that good of a player too, and they need him in the defense, like can he have an earpiece over to the sideline that says, "Hey, bring this guy in"? Like it's kind of fascinating.
He's running by the sideline like, "Hey, you, like warm up." Like
right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen it. Obviously in baseball you've seen it, but not as much in soccer. So pretty interesting. I mean, for those who aren't familiar, Tigres is just one of the largest clubs in Mexico. Highest spending clubs, historic, doing well in competitions. They have actually dropped 2 of their last 3 matches, so may not have been doing as well, and that could have led to some of the change. We had mentioned, after the Motagua match, we were looking at this, rivalry. Miazga and Diego Lainez, a player for Tigres, have had a history. So U.S. Mexico, I believe it was like 2017 or something like that. That Miazga does the too short to Diego Lainez, and now I'm kind of wishing we got round 2 for it. It doesn't sound like we'll get that. Maybe on the sideline or back in the back hallways, where we're not supposed to see or hear about these things, from a couple years ago with Miazga. But it would be really fascinating to see. I think we put that photo out, and Diego Lainez had seen the image of it as well. So did we kind of create a little bit of animosity?
Things don't. As you're hearing this, things don't go well tonight. I mean, I wouldn't put all the blame on us because, there's still the play on the field, but we may have started something that we probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, obviously these guys are professionals, and Lainez is like, okay, well, Miazga's not even in there. He's
not even playing. Yeah, exactly.
He's not even playing.
It was a joke. It was a joke. We're just trying to be funny.
Exactly. So we'll play this match, tonight, and then we'll play next Tuesday down in Mexico against Tigres in a very hostile environment, El Volcan, and I'm sure we'll talk about that on the flip side. But we were talking about it last week, Sam, just the fact that we get to host the first leg.
Yeah.
Is huge. And we had that with Monterrey last year and felt like we could have done better with the chances we had. I'm really hoping that we can have a solid first round aggregate for when we go down and play them there because, it'll be a very, very tough match, especially on, going Saturday at home to Tigres on Tuesday. I mean, that's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to kind of remain, fit throughout all that. So that way, I think this is kind of I don't know, like a get back game for FC Cincinnati. I was seeing the game that they kind of put out for the fans in the last Champions Cup match. I'm sure they're going, all right, like since this is the first game is up against a phenomenal opponent in Tigres, that like we got to show out, we got to bring everybody. So I'm probably banking on seeing one of the best lineups we've seen, if not, a similar lineup to what we've seen, in the Philly game. Obviously, we think that's a strong lineup. So something similar to that. Maybe we see a Luca Orellano, play a role in that match. I hope so. But I think my prediction for that game, Ryan, is gonna be 2-2. But I mean, it's a tough Tigres team. I think 2-2 draw is good, and then maybe we make a statement down in Mexico.
Yeah, if you're going 2-2, that's 2 away goals from them, and I think that's the tiebreaker on the aggregate. So I'm going to go 1-1. I think a draw is pretty fair as well. I hope we can pull a match winner, but from what I just saw from the last week, like we got to turn it around pretty quick. And I hope they have a big wake up call from the Philly match and say, look, like that is not acceptable. That is not good enough. And then you're going to go play a team that's arguably like on paper, like even better potentially. We got to really draw from our crowd. I'm really hoping that, tonight is a solid fan base that is pumped and ready to go and support their team. Because, honestly, Tigres is going to bring it too. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of supporters at this match. So I think the players even mentioned it for the Red Bulls game is how much that led them to win. So show out, be loud, support the team, even though what happened Saturday, it's a new game, it's a new week. And I think your point about lineup is true. I'm going to go with the same thing as you, and I think Orellano probably plays a feature. I don't know if you include him into the starting lineup or not at this point.
Yeah, not quite yet. Yeah.
I don't know, maybe a sub appearance or 45. Maybe he goes 45.
I would almost think maybe a Baird or a Kubo would start, and then you see Orellano come in for them, and then that way
maybe to switch something up to.
Well, that way you can get
Denke,
Evander, and Orellano a look, right?
Yeah.
So that way next game against Toronto, you're able to possibly start that.
Yeah, because match day 3 is this coming Saturday at home. Toronto is 0-1-1. They had just tied DC kind of like at the very end, or DC had tied against them. But they're 13th in the East right now. They have a new manager in Robin Fraser, who's an experienced MLS guy. Do we see Miazga by then? I doubt it. I think he's actually getting another look with his surgeon. Hopefully there's not too many complications.
Great.
I know. So we'll see what happens there. Orellano, Hagelin, Santos, maybe Dowdo doesn't quite seem all the way there yet. So maybe a little bit more of those guys helps with the fixture congestion. But I'm really hopeful, a lot more honestly, for the Toronto match on Saturday. It's just the fact that we have two back to back like that, and a tough Tigres, and then playing Toronto. At least it is at home.
Yeah.
Which is good. They did have some new guys they brought in. No Insigne, but they did have Bernadeschi in their starting lineup. So pretty solid, big time players, from the international football side of things. Like every time you play and you hear Bernadeschi, but yeah, I don't know. They haven't won a match since September 14th. So 8 matches now in MLS play. And last year, I'm pretty sure, I think we tied them 0-0 early on. You're going with a 2-0 win, huh?
Yeah, I'm going 2-0. I think we have a solid game against Tigres. We walk away with like a 2-2 draw. We feel good about it. Got our juice back, and then we go kick the crap out of Toronto up in Canada.
Oh, I think it's at home.
Oh, you're right. They come down to us. You're right. Well, at home, we regain some positivity at home. Kick the crap out of Canada.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. I think we pull it out and kind of really build from there, hopefully, for a quick turnaround match on Tuesday at Tigres. But I'm excited to have 2 home matches, in a single week too. If it's going to be this way and all this congestion, at least, if we looked, I think in the schedule, Sam, like it's a little bit lighter for what we think the teams will be this year. Obviously, it's so early to tell. But we do have some solid competition sprinkled in, but like Toronto shouldn't quote unquote be as good. So we'll see. Do you think there's more of a rotation for this match?
Probably, I'd say probably 1 or 2 players. Like I said, the rotation I'd like to see is an Orellano start, right? That would be the rotation of getting him in there, start him. Whether it be in the absence of somebody or with Denke and Evander, I think I'd like to see, as well as, honestly, Halsey played phenomenal the past 2 games. I thought his sub appearance was pretty solid against Philly. So I'd like to see him in either of these 2 games to give either Yedlin or Engel a little bit of a break on either side, depending on how they're feeling in that game. But other than that, I don't really expect too much.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the midfield is always the big question on, can these guys go, or at some point does Obi get a break, as well. So maybe you see Kubo drop back and Orellano goes up to that spot. Do they play around with formations with that too? Like, I don't know. Maybe you see 2 strikers instead of the 1, instead of like the sword formation, but excited again for these matches. Hopefully it'll be a positive episode next week to talk about. But trivia question in closing here, Sam. So I asked you earlier, Tigres actually will mark the 5th Liga MX club that FC Cincinnati has faced in our history. So in 6 matches, what is our record against these Liga MX teams? And Sam had locked in 4-2. So technically from FC Cincinnati, They are 3, 2, and 1. Okay. But I'm going to give this to you because the one that they count as a tie was against that Santa Laguna team.
Laguna. Yes.
And it was a
that's
tie
right.
in League's Cup, but we won on PKs. So technically, it's a tie, but I'm going to go with a 4-2 for you because we did advance. So 4-2, or 3, 2, and 1 if you want to count the tie before the PKs. But
Stupid League's Cup.
League's Cup.
Yeah, almost got me.
Exactly. So, but that's pretty solid against the Liga MX teams. I think,
absolutely.
The two losses, one was Monterrey. Both of them were Monterrey, right? I think it was both Monterrey last year.
But Monterrey, we're pretty good.
I mean, so not bad. But hoping again that we can pull it out here. Thanks again for listening, everyone. We will see you guys next week.